What's going on, y'all? It's Michael. Today I'm going to be talking about, some signs to detect a brand that is greenwashing, and also, maybe give some advice. Not so much to tell you that you aren't doing enough, but what you can do to be a more eco-conscious consumer, I guess. Before I get started, I'm just going to, assume off the basis that if you're watching a video talking about greenwashing, you have, a foundation of knowledge whenever it comes to, what is and isn't sustainable in the fashion industry, in terms of, very basic things like fast fashion and labor ethics and things like that. So the first disclaimer I want to make is also that fashion cannot be sustainable. It's not really possible for a brand to have a zero waste model. There's always going to be some form of waste, whether that's through transportation or, fabric scraps, things of that nature. But it's still possible for, us to be smart about where we're buying from, therefore voting with our dollar, which brands that we believe morally deserve to, prosper financially. I also want to make it clear that it should not be on us, the consumers, to clean up the mess that corporations have made in terms of, producing as much waste as they do on a yearly basis. It's been very ingrained in us as a society and a consumer base that it's up to us to, stop using plastic straws, ditch single-use plastics, stop buying fast fashion, as if the consumers are the issue. But the actual root is the corporations that, put these systems into place that, allow tons of waste to be produced and people to be exploited. So while it is substantial for, mass consumer changes to, they make a difference, obviously. It's easy to see how consumers have made a difference with all this, sustainable brands that have popped up, that are the reason that I'm making this video. They greenwash to make money. And there's also, if you've ditched dairy products, you've probably seen the drop in dairy purchases. That market has, plummeted since the rise of oat milk and almond milk on the market. So obviously consumers can still make change, but the most substantial way to make major changes in terms of environmental sustainability is to be politically active and vote for representatives that pass legislature that would, limit the amount of waste that these corporations pump out on a daily basis. But like I said, do not let that stop you from being a more conscious consumer, because we obviously can make changes, but it doesn't matter if every single person in the world is, buying responsibly or whatever. But there are still going to be corporations whose factories are dumping toxins into water supplies that, carry food supplies and whole ecosystems in them. So please vote. Please educate yourself on, local and state, federal representatives. That's the best way to be a fucking eco-warrior, is to educate yourself and those around you on the representatives that are actually trying to save the planet rather than destroy it for profit. But to actually jump into greenwashing as a topic rather than trying to radicalize my viewers, but I guess I should explain what greenwashing is first. Greenwashing is basically wearing the guise of being environmentally progressive in order to, trick your customers into feeling like they're doing something for the world and giving you more money, when in reality you're just using a bunch of buzzwords and cutting a lot of corners to make a profit and get that consumer goodwill. So, examples of this are H&M Conscious, where they claim to be using recycled fabrics and whatnot, but the main focus of their brand is paying Bangladeshi workers 21 cents an hour in terrible working conditions just so you can wear a $3 shirt. But recently, in the past couple years or so, I've had a lot of people come to me, whether it's you guys or my friends who aren't super invested into fashion, they'll come to me with a brand that claims to be progressive, ask me my thoughts on it, and, I'll give them the thumbs up, thumbs down, like a Roman emperor in the Colosseum. But first, I just want to go through some buzzwords that are pretty prevailing. You see them in pretty much every single one of these brands. The first one is, I guess, not so much a word, but a fabric and an idea behind it, and that is organic cotton. Pretty much every sustainable brand touts organic cotton as like the apex of sustainable fibers. When, you know, you can go watch my last video about cotton fibers, you know, from a consumer's perspective. But in that I talk about how organic cotton is substantially better than conventional cotton in terms of, you know, the environmental impact that it has, because you don't have to use pesticides, herbicides. It takes about a quarter of as much water to produce. But at the same time, organic cotton is not the best for the environment, you know, fiber that everyone seems to be tricked into thinking anymore, because organic has just become a like cultural monolith in terms of denoting like some sort of virtue to what you're buying. But in reality, organic cotton still takes a shitload of water to produce, because organic cotton and cotton in general just takes forever to grow. If you want me to provide some solutions to this, linen and hemp are both far less water intensive. They grow way faster. Even the conventional versions of them, I don't even think hemp requires pesticides or herbicides because it grows so fast. But linen requires like 1/13 of the pesticides that conventional cotton needs. I don't know the exact figures of how much water that it takes to produce like a linen t-shirt, but I know that linen is substantially less water intensive than cotton. And there's also like developments with lyocell or tencel. But yeah, there's so many more fabrics that are far better for the environment, but organic cotton has sort of become the poster child of sustainable fabric. But moving on, you'll also hear a lot about like recycled polyester, recycled nylon, just recycled synthetics in general. While recycling is good, I'm not gonna argue that. I will say that the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle has kind of been bastardized in that recycle has become like the forefront of that in terms of, you know, what people prioritize in their mind. But in reality, in terms of what you should take to heart, the phrase actually goes in order. So what I mean by that is, before we need to recycle something, we need to reuse something, and before you reuse something, we need to, you know, reduce how much we're using in the first place. But the word recycle has just become so much more prominent than all the other words, because it has been used more as a marketing scheme over time. Because if you push to your customers to, you know, reduce how much they're buying, your profits are going to drop. So that in itself isn't really like a dead giveaway to like the bad qualities of recycled synthetics. But I will go on to say that recycled synthetics don't break down naturally, like they don't biodegrade, and it still takes a ton of energy to actually recycle these fabrics. And also in the process of recycling these fibers and respinning them, the fibers themselves actually break down a lot and become a lot weaker. So whenever you wash them, they tend to break away microplastics a lot more. And I see a lot of people talk about this and don't really expand on like the gravity that microplastics, you know, hold. But essentially, microplastics, like the whole issue with them is that whenever you wash like a recycled synthetic piece of clothing in the washing machine, the fibers go into the water system. And whenever they enter like the ocean, these microplastics harm like the biomes of phytoplankton and zooplankton. For phytoplankton, it's a really big deal because people talk all the time about how the Amazon rainforest produces like 28% of the world's oxygen, but phytoplankton produce about like 70% of the world's oxygen. And there was actually a study that I saw, I'll link it down below, but it basically found that the higher the concentration of microplastics in the environment of a phytoplankton, the more damage that phytoplankton takes. And in turn, this causes the phytoplankton to, you know, break down and slow in their oxygen production, and then rebound really hard, which is also not good because it oxidates the water and basically like drowns the fish. You see this with like algae on ponds. So phytoplankton are marine plants, and zooplankton are like the animal plankton, if that makes sense. I'm not a biologist, sorry if I sound like an idiot, but the zooplankton actually can mistake the microplastics as food. And when they eat it, zooplankton actually make up the diets of a ton of sea animals. So there hasn't been a ton of research on it, but as it goes, up the food chain, the repercussions haven't really been researched thus far, but one could assume that it would not have a good effect on like the later stages of the food chain. But moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about vegan leather. A lot of people have come to me like looking for alternatives to like buying leather shoes. The truth is there aren't a lot of good options on the market. There are damn near none actually. The issue with most faux leathers is that they are usually made out of synthetics. You'll see polyvinyl chloride leathers, which is PVC. You'll see polyurethane leathers, PU, and polyamide leathers. Those are the three main faux leathers that you'll see on the market. The issue with these is that in their production, they produce a lot of greenhouse gases. They don't biodegrade and they don't like age well like leather does. They actually start to like crack and break down way faster, so they don't last as long as real leather. And in my humble opinion, they don't fucking look good either. So vegan leathers, for now, like those synthetic based ones are not good. And not a good alternative to leather because, well, I'm not gonna go into that argument. My solution for this is to tell you to look for plant-based leather goods, which unfortunately there aren't a lot of on the market right now, but the only ones that I know of are Avery's ground cover boots. But I will say that, going back to voting with your dollar, if you believe in, the progression of this market, I guess you would call it, you should be investing in these brands if you're financially capable to by supporting them financially, like buying their products. Like I said, hardly any good examples of that. Given that there aren't a lot of options out there, I would say that your best option for like a sustainable leather shoe would be to just buy secondhand leather because it's gonna last you way longer. It's going to biodegrade whenever it's at the end of its life cycle, which will take way longer and it looks way better too. So don't buy fucking plastic leathers. That shit is not good for the environment. I totally forgot to tie that all together, but the points of me pointing out like these, sustainable fabrics not being as sustainable as they actually are is that these companies are using, these fake, virtue buzzwords to sell these products, when in reality, even if they are slightly better than their alternatives of conventional cotton and, regular conventional unrecycled synthetic fibers, they are producing the clothing with like child labor, underpaid workers, horrible conditions, horrible work ethics. They tout how much better it is for the environment to use these fabrics, but you're subjecting human life directly to, exploitation. So it's ass backwards, basically. And finally, I want to talk about thoughts on these brands being trendy, aesthetic-wise. You'll see a lot of these brands sort of appeal to, modern trends, if that makes sense, like modern silhouettes, things of that nature, stuff that goes out of style. That's the main fucking issue. So if you are making a piece of clothing and it's gonna be outdated in a year's time, what fucking good does it serve to be sitting in somebody's closet? That's not sustainable. It's wasteful. So I think that practicality and comfort in silhouettes is a huge proponent of sustainability, because if something has a higher chance of staying in your wardrobe and getting a good amount of wear put into it, it is way more sustainable because it prevents, the circulation of garments through like transportation and production, and it doesn't require it to be replaced after a year just to keep up with trends. I would say that is something that none of these brands really take into account, is the sustainability of a practical aesthetic. But yeah, I think that's all I have. Like I said, tried to record this before, it was way more rambly. Hopefully this one is a lot more coherent because it was painful to watch the footage from the last one when I tried to edit it. Thanks for watching. Let me know any tips down below that you have for looking out for greenwashing. Correct me on any information I missed. If you want to know more about very bad sustainability issues in the industry, there's a really good documentary out somewhere. I don't know what platform it's on, but it's called The True Cost. And it goes into, you know, the horrific happenings of fast fashion, you know, even down to like the fiber level, like the farms that they're produced on. Fucking horrific stuff. And if that doesn't convince you to stop buying fast fashion, I don't fucking, like, I don't know why you're here. Like, I don't know, I don't have anything for you, bro. Follow me on Instagram, @Tandur, Tandur, like I said before. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.